dual recording, and
Okay.
we're live. 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a great day out there. I'm here with Abigail, both from REMAX Capitol Properties. Obviously, you're on our page, but anyway, we're just going to talk about a few things in real estate, what's going on. And so, if you had any questions or thoughts about the market, or any ideas about buying or selling, put them in the questions there, and we'll hopefully address them for you. So, Abigail has done a bunch of videos recently, and I thought they're really great. They're very informative, and they talk about a lot of different things. So I came up with a list,
Okay,
and I thought we could, you could
perfect.
give us some ideas about what
I
you,
have no
what's your
idea what we're
thoughts?
talking about.
No
so-
ideas. It's totally off the hip.
Off the cusp.
We had a different term for it, but
Yes,
I'm not going to
we'll
talk about
keep
that
it
term. Yeah.
PG.
So, radon.
Yes.
What do you think about radon?
Radon, okay, so I don't know what your experience has been when you're showing houses. Do people ask you about radon? Like,
Oh,
are
yeah.
they aware of it?
Yeah, I think so.
'Cause-
Some do.
Because I get a lot of people that are like, okay, I have to ask you about this gas and it's deadly. It seems to be like one of those things that someone's heard about it somewhere and then they're trying to, make sure that they address it when they're looking at houses. So anyways, I have tried to become well-versed on radon because it does come up. But I personally, I don't know how you feel about it, but I'll tell you how I feel about it
All right.
personally. I think I'm a window girl. Like, I love opening windows. I love fresh air. That, my understanding is, if you keep windows open and you're in and out of your house a lot, and my house also was built in, I think, 68 maybe, so it's not, a lot of new builds are like vacuum sealed, like they're so airtight, which is a whole other topic we can talk about. But I think my house has a lot of natural ventilation. I don't find it a big deal. I didn't test my house for radon when we bought it last year because to me I'm like, if it has high radon, I can get a mitigation system installed. And if it doesn't have high radon, then I have nothing to worry about. But we keep our windows open a lot and stuff, obviously not in the winter. But I don't know really how to feel about it because I have seen studies and I do know people that have like lived in basements their whole lives, and there seems to be a correlation between lung cancer and high radon levels and affecting your health. But kind of a long-winded approach to say, I think mitigation systems are great if you want to put them in. They're not that expensive, and the issue's taken care of. The fan just blows out any air from the foundation where any radon gas can be seeping in. But I don't think it's like a huge cause of concern to like blow a deal over high radon. But what is your
Because
take?
it can be fixed, right? Yeah.
Totally, yeah.
Well, I've been in real estate 31 years, and so what I found interesting in Cheyenne and Laramie County is that I would say out of 50% of the homes that people test or have tests, 50% of those tests have high radon.
Yeah,
So that would tell me that 50% maybe of the homes have radon.
for sure.
And so I think it's a judgment call on the person, and if it's a real concern, they should have it looked at.
For sure.
But, so here's my thought, if you're buying, it's probably worth testing because it's a good opportunity if it does need a radon mitigation system that you can usually negotiate with the seller to take care of it at that time because it's kind of a safety issue.
For sure.
So, but I agree with you too. It's, if it really is, it's subjective. And
Totally.
if it's important to you, you should test for it. If it's not. Now here, I'll tell you a couple things that I found really interesting. I was selling a house that was a walkout basement, and
Yeah.
it had 2 doors of a walkout basement. And so I thought, well, there's so many openings there that
Right.
it's probably venting, and it probably doesn't have high radon.
Right.
It had one of the highest radon levels I had seen.
Interesting.
So that was interesting. And then the other thing I found interesting is that someone tested radon in a single-family home that was on a crawl space. And I thought, well, why are we testing for radon gas
Right.
in above grade? There's no one living in the.
Right.
There's no way to live down there, and the main level had high radon.
Yeah, and
So
I've
it's-
seen that happen before too.
So there's really no rhyme or reason. I think the testing is accurate. I think the way they test it is good. But it's just crazy how places have it. Certain homes have it, certain ones
Yeah.
don't. And then my other understanding of it is that the radon gas travels through the soil. So you could literally test your home today and it could have nothing.
Yeah.
And then maybe next year you could test it and it's high.
Yep.
So I think it just travels, and it's
It's
kind of
hard.
luck of the draw if you get nailed with it at
Yep,
the
it's
time.
hard to say, and I don't know. I think people get like scared of it because I've had radon tests come back, and I think the EPA, they say if it's above 4.0, whatever,
Parts per whatever.
ppm or
Yeah.
something, that's where it's area of concern. But I just don't think it's like a deal, in my opinion, but then everyone's different too. But I do know like our geographical location with Vitavu supposedly is why we have high radon. And I guess Colorado, a client was just telling me last weekend that the military, I might flub this, but the military likes to use radon, or likes to use a certain, they test their, not telescope, but they test something over Colorado, like imaging, I don't know what it is. This is not very scientific, guys. But anyways, he was telling me that the military likes to use some sort of test above Colorado because radon is so high there that it flubs their system. And so they're testing to see how radon can essentially be like a safety precaution, that the higher the radon levels, you can't see down with cameras, which is interesting. So I don't know. Radon's
There's probably
weird.
some radon person listening and going,
They're like,
you guys have it all wrong. It's this and this and this. But anyway,
delete this video.
So it's subjective. If
Totally.
radon's important, you should have it
Yeah,
tested,
I just
right?
don't think it's that big of a deal, but that's just my opinion. But I
Yeah.
guess it actually could be. So take it with a grain
All
of
right, so
salt.
let's move on because we don't have,
Someone's gonna sue us for radon.
we only have a certain amount of time, so we need to move on.
Okay.
So here's my next question.
Okay,
Selling as is. What do you think?
that
So what are your
isn't
thoughts?
really, okay, that could be its own tangent in its own, especially with you being in the industry for so much longer than I have. But I think, I don't know, I'm actually, when people are like, we want to sell as is, we don't want to do any repairs, I'm all for it, but right there, I'm taking your value or your price that I was going to list your house at, then I start to go backwards, because I'm like, someone needs to come in and buy it and be okay with everything. Every house has something wrong with it, no matter, even brand new construction. Which, by the way, have you ever sold a new construction that's sold as is?
Well, most new construction, comes with like a 1-year warranty
Oh,
from
that's
the
true.
builder. So
Yeah, because it
kinda,
seems
I mean,
like even with brand new construction, the builder is aware that there might be things.
yeah,
that
and they
come
still
up.
find things.
For
Yeah.
sure, and I understand people's reasons why they sell as is, but I'm all for it. I just want people to understand that they're probably not going to list as high as they want to list for. But that's just my own take on it too. But what's your take on as is?
Well, my take is, I think that as a buyer, if I'm a buyer and I hear that this home is being sold as is, I think there's a little bit of the market out there that's going to feel like, ooh, that's a red flag. Like, why
Yeah.
is it being sold as is? Now, obviously, if it's like really hammered and it's really in bad shape, and it's, going to be like a flip property, which we could talk about here next.
Right.
Then maybe there's a reason for that. Like, listen, I'm not going to negotiate repairs. I mean, it's past that point.
Right.
It's so bad. Then we'd sell it as is. And I think
Right.
that makes sense. And you have a lot of investors and people that are looking for that sort of thing. But if you're kind of on the line and your home is okay, I really think it's best to still give that inspection opportunity to the buyer
sure.
and say, maybe when you get an offer, you go, listen, we'll concede to this price,
Right.
but we're not gonna pay for any repairs, but you can still inspect the property.
Exactly.
So maybe that gives them
Exactly.
a good option.
And you can, with as is too, you can still have your inspections done.
Yeah.
And you can still walk if you don't like the property. But the thing with as is it gets kind of dicey because, for example, if you have a house where my CMA comes in at 300,000 and the sellers are like, we want to do as is, that's a red flag to me of like, what's going to come up that I don't know about, or they're already anticipating something to come up. And then in my head, I'm like, well, the buyer that's coming in that price point is usually someone that is probably a first-time home buyer or someone that might not have all the tools necessary to do a flip-like property. So then I'm like, well, then how do you feel about like 285, for example? And this is just me too. As my broker, you can say never do that maybe. But there might be something that's not a $15,000 repair, do you know what I mean, to
Right.
make that that difference, but it entices someone in that 285 price range instead of 300 that entertains the house as is. So I don't think, like you're saying, I don't think it's most advantageous to do as is if your house is in, it's okay.
Yeah, if it's reasonable
Yeah.
and it's in decent shape, let the buyer inspect it and still try to keep the deal together and negotiate through what you
Exactly,
can. Yeah.
exactly. Yep.
So flip properties, we have a lot of flip, companies in town that do
Mm-hmm.
flips. And, so there's two sides to that. I think it's really a hard business model and
Mm-hmm.
for a few reasons. One is the flip company has to buy at the ultimate low price, the lowest possible price. Then the next challenge is they have to put the minimum amount into it, like the biggest bang for their buck. And so a lot of that can turn into cosmetic type things.
For sure.
And then the other challenge is they have to sell at the absolute highest dollar,
Yeah.
right, to make this a profitable business. So it's a hard business, and I think a lot of times flippers get maybe a little bit of a, kind of a bad name to them that, they're a flipper and they do this. It's just a hard business, and it's not like I think they try to do anything, bad or anything unethical. It's just they have to buy so low, little bit of into the property and sell for as much.
Yeah.
So you've dealt with some flip
Yeah.
people, and so what are your thoughts on flips?
I think their margin is, that's what it is. It's a margin business, which most businesses are, but their margins sometimes can get so tight that they will overlook something major like the roof and the sewer line just to make a deal work for their numbers, and then that's at the detriment of the buyer. So I tell people that do look at flips, ask around, obviously ask your agent if they know who flipped the property, because if they have a history of negligence, maybe for the lack of just overlooking some big ticket items in their previous flips that have caused issues, then I think it's worth finding out if that's the same flipper, if they've fixed those issues as they have continued to flip houses. But some flip, just like with anything, you can get a real good flip of a house and they've dotted every I and crossed every T, and you can get a bad apple that they were just in it for making a buck, and the house can be a lemon, for lack of a better term. It can be a mess. So I just think find out who the flipper was, and that makes a huge difference.
Right. Inspections, make sure you do a lot of inspections on those
Yeah.
properties. It's out of our scope to go through the process of checking on permitting and all those things for the property, but it's really good as a buyer to do some of that research and check those things out to see, have the permits been pulled? Is it up to code? Those sort of things, and have your inspections. Make sure you're entirely comfortable with it before you go through with the closing, because we're really a kind of an as-is state, meaning once you do those inspections and you get through your objection period, once you close, it's very hard to go back on someone and go, I'm really not happy with this, or this
Right.
wasn't done correctly. Like, that's your opportunity to do inspections.
Right.
And make sure you're comfortable with it. And we're very much a state that's like,
Right.
once you're done, and you had this opportunity, so make sure you're
Yeah.
confident with your
And I
decision.
will, on that note too, like you were saying, Wyoming is very much a buyer beware state. We don't have a lot of protection with buyers here in Wyoming. And another thing to note with flips is a lot of these flippers get old homes. That's where their margins make the most sense, because either someone's died, it's been in the family a long time, or it's just kind of been dilapidated, and they can get that house for really cheap off market. And then that's when they go in and rehab it and try to sell it at a higher price point. And with old homes, you just you never know what's gonna give at some point, and could be the flipper's fault, it could not be, so, yeah.
I think it's a good business model in that we talked about this in our sales meeting today. The expectation of a buyer right now is not that they want to find some property that's beat down and they want to put in this sweat equity. And, I mentioned it probably last week on the video. The first home I bought had 2 inches of water in the
Yeah.
basement, and I bought it that way, and the seller could sell it that way, and that was many, many years ago. But right now, if I showed a home, imagine going
Yeah.
into a home that had 2 inches of water in it, your buyer would be like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah,
There's a
exactly.
different expectation now, which is, they really like turnkey properties. So if you're considering selling, really make sure you're sprucing your property up and getting that ready to
For
go.
sure, yeah, that's such a good point too.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
see what else I had here. So who do you call to see a house?
Me.
Oh, Abigail, okay, all right. I like that. That's good. But why?
it's-
Are there some benefits with that? I would think there probably are.
Calling me?
Yeah, well, let's say that you're calling a real estate professional, but, you know,
Sure, I get
Abigail
what
would be
you're
at the top of
saying.
your list.
Well, wait,
or-
are you saying like, who do you, like, do you mean, okay, let's say I am Joe Blow wanting to go look at a house. Are you saying like, who should Joe Blow call
Yeah.
to go, well, you would
Or
want to
why?
call.
Or why?
Okay, well, you would want to call a realtor.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I, see, and the whole thing is too, is like a lot of realtors are like, make sure you're pre-qualified before you go shop for houses. I'm like, I think it's important to look at everything so you know what you don't like, really, before you find what you do like. But anyways, besides the point, you want to call someone that you know, like, and trust, right? That's the big three they
That's
always
good.
say.
Yeah, that's really
what they
good.
always
Yeah.
say, is you want to know someone, you want to like them, and you want to trust them. That's so important. So, yeah, I mean, I would say, I don't like when realtors are like, you want to call me? I'm the best in the business. Like, I'll get you your house, whatever. I'm like, you might not like me. I don't know. So anyways, call around, see if any of your friends have used a realtor that they've liked, and
Yeah,
try using that person.
so if you're looking to buy a home, you know, it's good to probably interview some agents and see if
Yeah.
you're a good fit, because you have to work together as a team.
Yeah.
You have to have this fiduciary relationship together. And, but the big, you know, there's a real benefit with an agent, in my opinion. There's several, but, you know, one is access. So,
Yeah.
you know, the buyers need to have access to these homes. And with us being as a member of Multilist, we have access to all the homes that are listed for sale. So that gets you in to look at the properties.
Well, yeah, you
need-
can't, who else would you call?
Yeah, well, I mean, unless they're like for sale by owners or something, you can
Oh,
go to
yeah,
check
I'm
some of those
like,
out. But you really want the access.
Yeah.
The other thing that you really need to lean on your agent is being an advocate for you, because not everyone buys a home every year. Or it's not like you have someone, when's the last time you bought a house? You know, the national average now is bumped up now. I think it's like 9 years. It's getting a little bit longer. It used to be like 7. So 9 years, you know, so if you think of yourself, if you do something once every 9 years, are you good at it? And probably not. Like,
Right.
if you go to the gym once every 9 years, you're probably not it's probably not gonna show, and it may
Yeah.
really struggle, you know? So
That's true.
you need to remember that you have an advocate working for you that's looking out for your best interest, that is good at negotiating. I mean,
Yeah.
negotiating is hard. You know, unless
Yeah.
you're a really fantastic negotiator, most of us don't even negotiate. You
Can
go
I
to
tell a story real quick about
Yeah,
negotiating?
yeah.
Okay, how much time do we have? Okay, or we're just live.
Yeah, we're just
living.
live. I mean, we could talk for an hour. I don't think that's gonna
Okay,
happen.
I don't, well, we could. I have to tell the story though. We went and bought a new truck before the year ended. So we were shopping around, and I don't know if a lot of people know, like, do you guys, you know, you can negotiate your purchase price on your vehicle, right?
Yeah, I
I
think-
thought everyone knew that. Like, I thought that, I've watched my parents, they called it the chicken dance growing up. They would dance with the salesperson. Anyways, I've always just learned that everything's negotiable. Anyways, we tried to buy one up here. The dealership didn't really want to dance with us, me, really, because I'm like, negotiating's part of my gig. Like, I never think, I don't know, I just think I'm like, I forget we negotiate as part of our job. Like, it's just second nature, I think, and I forget that not a lot of people negotiate every day for their job. Anyways, we ended up going down to Fort Collins, and the truck was listed, MSRP was 70, and I told them, I was like, we have to be out of the door at 55, or else we're leaving. Like, that's what it is. And they're like, what? Like, this is crazy. You want that much off of and I'm like, well, this is what it has to be, and like this. Anyways, so they go back and talk to their manager, of course, and then the dance starts. We ended up walking out 58 out the door. So we got, you know, I negotiated them down, and they thought that they were like, how much real estate do you sell? If we ever come to Wyoming, we're calling you. This chick's crazy. They were like, do you want a job? We'll hire you today. But I forget that negotiating, I mean, it does make a huge difference. And I did not realize how, I'm kind of pumping my own tires right now, but I did not realize how much I have gained the skill of negotiating, and how important it is to have someone to advocate for that for you, because
Yeah.
it does make a huge difference.
Yeah.
So that's my
good point.
little tangent.
No, that's very good. It's very true.
Yeah.
So yeah, people don't negotiate that often. It's not like we're like the ones that negotiate everything. We have to give you the person
Totally.
ideas, some strategies. You know, maybe if we look at this, we can do this. You get to ultimately decide, but it really does help someone go through
Well,
that
we're
process.
not emotional about it. We're just like, it's numbers and,
Oh, sometimes we can get emotional
well,
about it.
well, but like, we're not, like, our clients, if
Right.
it was just clients, then it can get emotions, get frayed the relationship way quicker and a deal can get blown up way faster, I think, until you get us involved. Sometimes we blow it up too for no reason, but usually we're like the middleman that can keep everything neutral.
At least
And
that's the plan.
that's the hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, well, let's see. What else are we going to talk about? You have anything else you want to talk about since you have this opportunity?
I know. I'm trying to think of anything else that would be. One thing too. I was out showing property this weekend, and we got a ton of snow this weekend. And I think it's important to note where your driveway faces. Kept telling and this made a big difference to my buyers. Is when we get a ton of sunlight here in Cheyenne, but we also get a ton of snow, and our winters are pretty brutal. But if you have a driveway that faces south and the sun can melt it for you, that's a huge win, in my opinion, because or else you'll be shoveling and then your driveway will turn to ice every time it happens.
Yes.
If you have a north or maybe west facing driveway, but I guess it depends. But stuff like that, like what are other tips that you have that people don't think of when they've got the blinders on looking for a house, like to deal with our elements here in Cheyenne?
Yeah, wind
Yeah.
is another one. Probably
Yeah.
the way your house is, is the orientation of your house. It's really subjective though too. I found that, so like I know your house faces south and so does mine.
Yeah.
And so that's great. You get all the sun on the driveway and that. The other nice thing with that is that, the backside of your house is on the north side, so you're really not out there
Yeah.
during the winter. So it seems like during the winter, that's the best case. If the wind's blowing in the summer and your patio's on the north side, then maybe you get some of that northwest wind and maybe
Yeah.
it's not the best. So who knows, but
Yeah.
I don't know what the best orientation is. It's tough. It just
yeah.
depends on, what's kind of
Just
happening
go
there.
inside pretty much in winter. And I do
Just
I do say people are like, oh, if I ask them on a preference on garage, and they're like, no preference. I'm like, you'll probably want a garage because how hard we get hit with hail.
Yeah.
So
If it's in their budget, yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, or a carport or something. Yeah.
Well, thanks for spending some time and going through
Yeah,
these.
thank
It's
you.
always great. If we can add some value for you at REMAX Capitol Properties, reach out to us. Thanks and have a great week.
Bye, guys.